And today, Vice President Mike Pence's trip comes as new reports are released that Venezuela is making efforts in order to stay financially solvent. Earlier this week, we told you of how the Bank of England blocked the Maduro government from withdrawing $1.2 billion in gold reserves. Well, now we're learning that Venezuela has sold around somewhere between 15 to 20 tons of gold to the United Arab Emirates in exchange for euros. So for more on this, we're being joined now by former UK MP George Galloway. All right, George, Washington is all abuzz with what appears to be Maduro readying to ship some 20 tons of gold to the UAE. That's valued at about $850 million. Maduro wants euros. A Russian plane has been seen in Caracas, but it left without any gold moving from the Venezuelan central bank. Now there's a cargo plane from Abu Dhabi there. What do you make of all these moves by Maduro?
Well, it's very interesting. I hope the transaction was completed before it landed in the newspapers, because the United States, through Marco Rubio, has threatened to sanction, take legal action against anyone buying or selling anything of this kind from or to Venezuela. So the extraterritoriality, the reach of the United States, at least in the mind of its statesmen, has no limitations at all. Even the sheikhs in the desert of the UAE can be told by a senator in Florida whom they can buy, what they can buy. So let's hope the transaction went through, because Venezuela definitely needs the money. The people who are crying crocodile tears for poverty and hunger in Venezuela are, of course, through their sanctions, imposing more poverty and more hunger on the very people they're supposedly crying for. I have the feeling, Manila, that this is all going a little bit flat, because this person that they have put up as the president of Venezuela doesn't cut the mustard. He's a complete unknown. Turns out he's not even a member of the National Assembly of Venezuela, merely an alternate member. In other words, he didn't get enough votes even to be elected to the parliament, and he never stood for the presidency. And the vast majority of Venezuelans, whether they're with Maduro or not, and many are not with Maduro, I grant you that, certainly can't imagine that this fellow, whatever his name is the answer to their problems.
Now, George, I'm glad that you brought up Marco Rubio, because the UAE is a U.S. ally, at least on the global stage. You've seen the United States backing the UAE and Saudi Arabia with their war on Yemen. But Senator Rubio has blasted Abu Dhabi on Twitter for aiding Venezuela, threatened the Gulf state with retribution from the U.S. Treasury. The UAE hasn't really come out outright to say that they support Maduro, but is this kind of a tacit means of support by doing this transaction?
Well, this is what I mean by it falling flat. The Deputy Foreign Minister of Italy, for example, today denounced this regime change operation, warned that it risked another Libya, this time in Latin America. And he said that Europe's main preoccupation this day is to avoid a war in Venezuela. So you've got the UAE going rogue, even though most people regarded it as a puppet state. You've got Italy denouncing it in these terms, and you still, notwithstanding the toothless European Parliament decision yesterday, the decisions of the European governments and the Council of Ministers in Brussels is not at all fully to back the United States position. So I have a feeling, I may be wrong, that this may have gone off half-cocked, as we say over here. The gang that couldn't shoot straight in Washington may have shot itself in the foot again.
All right, George. Now, insiders say that Maduro has to deal in cash due to the crippling U.S. sanctions. They say he needs these funds for imports of basic goods to the country. $750 million is a lot of money for, at least for one person, but for a country of nearly 32 million people, how long can Maduro continue this before depleting the country's reserves?
Well, they've got quite a lot of gold. They are a gold producer, and they've got unrefined gold too, some of which they sold last year. So for a while, I suppose, is the answer to your question, but not forever. And that's why I say there's no question that there's an economic crisis in Venezuela. The only thing at issue is who's causing it. And I'm very clear, and I think many people are, that the S word is to blame. Not socialism, but sabotage. There's a full-scale economic sabotage going on against a country of 32 million, which has the biggest oil reserves in the world. It just doesn't make sense. The former president of Uruguay put it rather well earlier today. He said that the bottom line is the United States cannot accept that all of that oil might fall under the influence of China and Russia.
And with that, we will make that the last word. Thank you, as always, for sharing your insights with us, George Galloway.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.